I was scratching on Monday. Another way to just create an interesting sound. It's not a drum sound, but it's a sound effect at the end of a bar before you do your transition. All I'm doing is I'm spinning it back and then I'm bringing the crossfader over, right? That's all I'm doing. I'm just grabbing it and spinning it back. This is UK Garage. I've talked about it a few times, and I'll talk a little bit more about it when we get to house music. Very heavily influenced by Jamaican styles of music that were already popular in the UK at a time when house music was coming up. And it's very much a London sound. Not just all of UK. It's very specifically a London sound, but London's obviously got so many people that is very influential. And things like spinbacks are part of the sound of garage. And other Jamaican influenced genres like jungle and drum and bass as well. And they'll just do that, right? Now, when you're on controllers, sometimes that doesn't work quite as well as you want because controllers are capacitive touch. They have this thing where they're sending like little pulses of DC and they're trying to measure the capacitance of the platter to detect whether there's a hand on it. At the moment you release your hand, depending on the software, it might interpret that differently. It may say the moment you release the hand, stop treating the music as if it's playing in vinyl mode. It might just say, oh, you're very clearly trying to do a spin back, so we're going to let the spin back play out. Different pieces of software do that differently because this is an algorithmic thing, not a mechanical thing. So what you might end up having to do, you might have to do that. You might have to keep your hand on it so you maintain that contact. The software knows that you are deliberately trying to go backwards and you're not just trying to slow down the currently playing track. So that's the other way to do a spin back. Now, you don't always have to do spin back on the fourth beat. So if you have an echo effect, you can actually do it sooner, and then the spin back will sort of lasts longer, right? So I'll do that. And what I do is I just turn on the echo before I do it. So that's 2 beats. I got two beats before I bring in my next beat. But actually the echo went so long I could probably do 4 beats. So that was a little bit shorter, but you can try that. Anyone want to give this a try? Yeah, pretty much. Nice. So you added the echo to that one. Yeah. Nice, very nice. When you add the echo, you've got this nice kind of like smoothing out of things, right? It actually hides exactly where you move the fader across. And it does it in a musical way. It's important to make sure that your echo is actually using the tempo of your music. In most cases, with your controllers, it's grabbing that straight out of the song. So if you've changed the pitch, your computer is actually generating the echo effect. It's using the same tempo of wherever it thinks your song is right now. Sometimes it gets it wrong. Some of your controllers also have a tap button. So you can do things like, where the song is playing. And then I know it's close enough at that point. So if I turn on an echo now, it's not using the tempo from the computer, it's using the tempo I just punched in. Close enough, not exact. If for some reason the computer's beat rates are off, you can still take control of that by just manually tapping in the tempo. So this was a song I played on Monday. And we want to cut off this part. Okay, let's hear that again. 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, and. What you saw me do on Monday was I scratched over it, right? I just scratched over it. like that. But I can also use an echo. So I'm letting the echo fill in those extra beats for me. And that can be really, really handy, especially if you're changing genres. It's kind of like almost adding a fade out of the music where you want it. But because it's actually synchronized to the timing of the music, it makes sense. For some reason, I wanted to go from house to like 80s. 1, 2, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. So that way, there's a little bit of, it doesn't feel as abrupt, that's just cutting it, right? So that's very, very handy to sort of jump genres, jump tempos even. It's very easy to overuse it once you've gotten the hang of it. I admit, I overuse it all the time. But it does kind of like cover up any changes in sound quality, changes in volume. Different music from different eras were produced with a sort of different tonal quality, right? And the echoes kind of just make that blend a little bit easier. Very handy, especially if it's like you play a song, everybody who was on the dance floor starts leaving because nobody likes it, and it's like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? Just like cue up some other song real quick, echo out the old song and just drop it in, right? It's like, come back, everyone. Often when you're using echo, you're just grabbing a little bit of the music, a little longer than the beat. So in this case, I've set my echo to 1 beat. So if I set it to half beat, you'll hear the difference. If I set it to half beat, that's a half beat. 1 beat. The way how I've set up my echo, I've set it up as a low cut echo, which means it's actually removing the kick drum frequencies. There's different ways to do that. In Rekordbox, there's specifically a low cut echo effect. I'm not sure if it's automatically enabled or whether you have to buy an expansion pack for it, but it does the same thing. It just means that instead of echoing all of the sound, just echo everything except for the bassiest frequencies, where the kick drums usually are. And that does tend to sound better, because whatever music I'm bringing in will probably have a kick drum of its own, and I kind of want that to take over at that point. There are other echo timings which can sound nice with different kinds of music. So this is what they call a 3/4 echo. It's not quite 1 beat. It's like halfway between a half beat and a 1 beat, which can be cool for some genres of music. Again, a half beat echo. And I can do a 1/4 beat echo. That one is a little bit difficult for me to figure out how to use that musically. It's just over a little bit too fast. But you might find that it works perfectly for your music. One clue is to listen to your own music and listen to the echoes that is actually being used in normal production. And that gives you a clue of that, well, maybe I can use echoes in a similar way. This is correct for that genre of music that I'm playing. So if your music uses a lot of triplet echoes, then you can set your echoes to a triplet timing, or even tap in a triplet tempo and have it do it that way as well. Really depends on the music that you're playing. Anyone familiar with this phrase, pull up? No? Anyone? Yeah, pull up. Yeah, exactly. That, yes. When do people shout pull up? At parties in Jamaica. And why? Why do people shout pull up? They start a track again. They want to hear the beginning of that track again, right? What happens is that the DJ actually does some cool transition, and they drop the song, not at the beginning of the track, but say the hook. Right, the recognizable part. I do a mix and then I just drop this. And the audience, makes a big noise. They're really excited, and people start shouting out, pull up. Usually, the people on stage have the most effect. So if you're working with an MC, in Jamaica, that person's actually called a DJ. The person with the mic is called a DJ, and the person on the decks is called a selector. And they're shouting you, pull up, pull up, pull up, then you will rewind, but you let people know that you're rewinding, right? So yeah, exactly. I play that. Someone shouts, pull up, and then I will turn on the echo. right? And then we start at the beginning. Say I'm playing a track. And then I get the reaction, and I want to pull up. So I'll turn on the echo, and I'll rewind it back, and I'll play an effect at the same time. Something like that. Just to let people know what's going on. Remember to turn the echo off. I always forget. And then the song goes on, right? So that's a pull-up, right? Yeah, and it happens in pretty much any genre of music that has a strong Jamaican influence. So pretty much every UK dance scene, for instance, this could happen. Garage, house, drum and bass, people pull up all the time. An Afrobeat party in the UK, they will do that. An Afrobeat party in the US, probably not, depending on how many people are familiar with that Jamaican dance culture at that party at the time. But DJs, you should expect to know this. You should expect that if people actually are so excited about your music that they're going to shout you to pull up, you've earned that pull up to the point where people will say, that song is so wild, we want to hear all of it from the start again, right? Doesn't mean that you have to play it all the way to the end. Probably don't. At some point in time, people are going to lose interest, and then you go on to your next song. So we talked about the pull-up, we talked about the spin-back, which was this, right? But then there's also the backspin, which is more of a hip-hop thing. This is a backspin. So just rewinding back to the beginning of that first sample, which is on the 4. Now, how many times do I need to wind back? All right, I want you to count it as I do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. All right. So people sort of understand what's going on. Each side has exactly the same song. And I'm bringing it back to the same part of the song.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so then the background track feels like, or the beat feels like it's always going because you're always bringing it back.
Yeah, I'm manually looping this song, basically. Yeah. So, one more time, what I do is I make sure that this is pointing away from me. I make sure this one's pointing away from me. And I set the hot cue, so right now, this is the beginning of the song. And if I let go, it's back up again, facing away from me. So the moment I let go, and I can rewind. Now I can use the screen to make sure that I'm in the right place, even if I lose count. And once you get comfortable doing it a few times, you can go faster. Just to vary things up a little bit, so that it's not always the same loop all the time, right? And the reason why it's expressive is because you get to decide it on the fly. You don't really have to plan it. You just, as long as you got that one hot cue and you know where that hot cue is, you can do it over and over again.
Could you use it like a beat loop?
Yes, but then you lose that expressiveness. A beat loop will be from here will be like. Plus, it doesn't give the audience anything to look at. They're just like hands-free. People might wonder if your record's skipping. Whereas if I'm actually mixing, I can start scratching, right? And you don't have to plan that. You just say, I'm going to do something when the moment comes. I'm going to do what I feel. And it becomes a little bit more of a musical instrument rather than just a media player, right? Which is what hip-hop brings to the table. Now, that's the backspin. And that's a fun DJ game that folks from the hip-hop era came up with, which is basically you form a line of DJs, usually on the left side, although I've seen it done on the right. And then the next DJ, while I'm playing this, the next DJ will come up and start queuing up this record, back to the first good times. And then they will come over to this side and get ready to play the next good times. And then they will step out of the way and they'll run back to the back of the queue, and it just goes on, right? I want you all to try this. I would like you to form a line right here, right now. And I'll do it a few times so that while people are coming up, you can see what I'm doing, all right? And we're going to start very simple, which is just cue points. Remember, I'm dropping on the 4, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So you make sure that your marker is pointing at 12 o'clock. For the first phase, you just hit the cue point. You let go and you move the crossfader at the same time, okay? So I make sure it's at 12 o'clock. I'm out. Next. It's the green one. It's the green one. Yep. All right. Right side. Yep. Yep, yep. Next.
Wait, why do you need it to be at 12 o'clock?
That's part 2. Nice, nice. Yeah. Right now, the 12 o'clock thing doesn't seem necessary, but it will get necessary when we are actually backspinning. All right? Yep. Probably pushing too hard on the record, so a little lighter touch. So point it at 12 o'clock before you hit the cue point. Yep, now hit the cue point. There we go. All right? All right, next. All right, this is why we need to form a line, so there's no awkward glancing at people. All right, whoever hasn't gone yet should be in front of me. Whoever has gone should be behind me. Okay. Now, we're going to try backspinning, all right? So keep an eye on the left deck every time I do this, because you're going to want to manually rewind it until you hit the green cue point on screen, all right? People are getting the hang of it. I am very impressed by everyone right now. I suggest everyone keep a hand on the crossfader, because that way you can verify that the sound is off.
Verify what?
that the sound is off. Make sure your hands are always on the left side of the turntable because typically the tone arm is here. So when DJs have their hands on the record, it's always on the left side. Secondly, it might be faster for you to rewind from the center of the record because you just have less linear distance to go, so doing this. But I understand this sometimes gets in the way. All right. Now, like right now, if I had to rewind this manually, it will take me forever, right? Because we've been playing this for so long. And so rewinding all of that is going to take a while. In that case, you just line it up, hit the green button, and we're going to keep going, all right? This is the last round. We're going to try to do this fast, all right? And when someone's on the right deck, you can already start getting up to the left. Just, you don't want to stop it yet, yeah? Just get into position, right? Because there's space for you to sort of walk in there. Nice, very nice. He's starting on the right. So I gotta have to come into the right. So I want you to try this with your team, with your crew. See if you can get, let's see how fast we can get. See if you can get to that speed. It's just one bar. Just as a fun activity for you and your crew to practice with just like 3 or 4 of you, right?